You know what? Victims actually don't demand a lot of stuff. The vast majority of victims actually just want to be treated fairly. My name is Floyd Wiebe, and on January the 5th, 2003, my 20-year-old son, TJ Wiebe, was murdered by 4 young men.
I am Dr. Dawn Harvard, and I'm from the Wacomiconk First Nation on Manitoulin Island, and I am the interim president for the Native Women's Association of Canada. You can't exercise your rights if you don't know that you have any, much less what they are and how to stand up for your rights.
Unfortunately, the whole victim process is basically new in this country. It's only been basically 10 years of actually working, allowing them, to be involved, not involved in making decisions, but at least participating in the process.
Organizations like the Native Women's Association of Canada are really putting themselves out there. We are trying to be that voice and bring these concerns forward. But at the same time, one of the things we believe is really important is that it's not so much my job to speak on behalf of anybody, but to really work to create those forums, to create those opportunities for the victims to speak for themselves, whether it be victim impact statements, which is typically the way that victims are provided the opportunity to have their concerns, to explain how this situation has impacted them, and how often we see our people, handed a piece of paper and told, this is the form. Now you need to go home, take this form, fill this form out, and you bring it back, and that's the only way that your concern, your voice is going to be heard by, perhaps the judge or whoever it is who needs that. There's an entire army of people who are being employed to work in this process. If you know that this is a remote fly-in community, and you know that, statistically, if you just look at the Canadian statistics, that a large number of people in this kind of community are going to have minimal education levels. They're going to have minimal literacy levels and language challenges. So what is our obligation to make sure that we have those translators, and not look at it so much as those victims don't have what is needed. They have the skill, they have their language to express their voice. It's not their fault that the judge or the police, they're the ones who don't have the language to hear. And I've seen this happen to, Anishinaabe elders, people who have been victims, who need to have their concerns told, but they may not speak English, they might have literacy issues. How many of our people have absolutely minimum level of literacy and wouldn't even have the ability to go home? I have seen an elder come forward with, she had really sat down and worked to write her statement handwritten on a piece of paper, that she really struggled, and had some assistance with somebody to help her put her words down in that way and transcribe it for her, only to be told that, no, that's not the appropriate form. It has to be in this particular form, and she's just handed the form and told to go back and have it put in the proper form and then bring it back. So if we're not aware of the literacy issues, of the language issues for people where English is not their first language, how valuable is a victim impact statement form going to be? How useful, how impossible is that form going to be for them? And how many people faced with that would just walk out and throw it in the trash and keep on walking and feel that nobody's really wanting to hear me anyways, because, here I was just one more time throwing up another barrier to having my voice heard, because it's not being presented in this so-called, proper format. And that's a real concern.
For my very first parole hearing, I was called by the parole board to come to attend the parole hearing. When I asked how it worked, she said, well, what'll happen is the parole board will already be in the room. Across the table from them will be the inmate. You will be brought into the room with your family and seated behind the inmate. I said, okay, that makes sense to me. And she said, so the parole board will do their introductions, etc., and they'll probably ask you to read your impact statement. And I go, oh, okay, and where do I do that? And she said, well, from where you are seated. And I go, I don't understand. You mean to tell me that I'm making my impact statement to the back of his head? Like, why would you call it an impact statement when I'm sitting in the back of the room like a second-class citizen that doesn't even count? And I demanded that I sit at the table where the parole board hearing was, and I had to go through hoops and bounds to get that done. Most victims, when they're told that they'll just sit at the back of the room, will just accept it. They don't understand that they can actually ask for more, and they don't. And when I asked them, why are you telling me that I need to sit in the back of the room? Their answer was, oh, we feel that victims don't really want to see the offender. And I'm going, how dare you make that decision for me? You let me make that decision. And you know what? I respect a person that may not want to see that person, but let them make that choice. Society needs to help both parties heal after this traumatic event.